Welcome to this radio channel, and this is the solar activity and radio propagation outlook for the week of September 24th, for Monday, September 24th, 2018. One of the first news items about this is that we've had 153 days of no sunspots on the sun, which means that we're pretty much in solar minimum. Last time that this happened was in 2009, so solar minimum is really in effect right now, and these are conditions that are going to prevail for a little while, honestly, because even though we've seen our first sunspots that have reverse polarity, it takes a little while for that to actually start kicking in again. Okay, so what's happening with our sun is the coronal holes. It's really that. It's defining a lot of what's happening in radio propagation. And look at that. There's this really huge area here of off and on coronal holes. These are the dark spots that you see all around here. And of course, solar wind is spewing out of that at a faster rate than in the rest of the solar atmosphere. So, of course, it's our geomagnetic field. And, as we're in the equinox now, we've just crossed the equinox. We're officially in fall in the northern hemisphere. We're officially in spring in the southern hemisphere. The equinox are a period of time where the coronal holes and the solar wind has a bigger effect, even though the wind gusts, the particles are not, it's not like a coronal mass ejection of some sort, or a huge solar flare. It still has and triggers some geomagnetic storming because the Earth is more sensitive to that at this time of year. So, of course, in the next few days, we will have off and on periods of, quiet mixed in with maybe minor geomagnetic storming. If we look at what happened in the past couple of days, September 22nd, we went into minor geomagnetic storm with a K of 5. We were a K of 4, which is unsettled. And if you look at the K index, it's pretty much staying at a level of 2, 3. It is kind of being triggered a little bit by that solar wind. So you'll have off and on good and less interesting propagation for the next few days because of the coronal of the solar wind coming from the sun and the possible geomagnetic storming or unsettled conditions that it's going to cause. So maybe not the best week ever, but it's still worth to check it out. And go to solarham.net, check the K index, check the K indices. They tell you the state of our geomagnetic field, and 2 or less usually not too bad. If it starts getting to 3 or 4 or 5, then you know that conditions are going to change. One other thing I want to stress out, because somebody was mentioning, when K index is 5, 6, 7, we should stop listening because there's nothing. No, it's not exactly that. There's interesting effects when the geomagnetic storms are in effect. Sometimes some regions are enhanced, so you might hear signals from some specific regions that you don't hear usually, and of course others will have pretty much disappeared off the bands. It's really interesting. It's worth just tuning around and seeing what's on. But for regular listening, for your favorite programs, for example, that you might be listening to every day, it might not be great when the K index goes up. Shorter days, of course, are coming in the northern hemisphere, and we can see that signals from stations that are already they're still in their summer frequencies, like Radio Romania, are having a hard time getting through. Radio Romania in the evening is really, really more and more difficult to catch, actually. So we see that the effect of the low solar flux and the shorter days, sorry, are really affecting. And the frequencies will only change in a month's time. And sometimes I wonder if the frequencies shouldn't change earlier, like end of September rather than end of October. Maybe that would be better. Some stations have already noticed it, like KBC, my TKBC, moved down to 5960. It's working great there. But in the 80s and 70s, there were actually 4 schedule periods a year. There was one for the fall or spring because there was a change on the propagation. They've tried to, because it was cumbersome and was difficult for some stations to change. They've kind of changed that to twice a year, but the problem is there's that buffer zone, that period of time where those frequencies are not really that great, especially when solar minimum. So, anyways, tune around the bands. You never know what's going to happen, and you never know. Of course, most of what you'll do as radio listening will be in the lower frequencies, and unless there's some unusual, sporadic E, probably above 20 won't propagate much, above 20 megahertz, even daytime, because of the low solar flux. If you enjoy our videos, please subscribe, give us thumbs up. Thank you for watching.